So back at you with some standing hints for the standing position, air rifle standing position, ISSF 50-meter rifle position, sporting rifle prone position, sporting rifle standing position, I'm sorry. Most of the basic hints are very, very similar. You deviate from the basics some for different situations. For example, an ISSF rifle, 50-meter rifle is quite heavy, whereas a sporting rifle is really quite light. And so there are some slight changes. There's basic things you can do in your position standing that gives you quite an advantage. One of them is that your feet are fairly wide apart now. Years ago they used to teach feet closer together, not anymore. Most of the guys and girls are all shooting fairly wide stance. Okay, when you're standing fairly wide, you want your weight not on the fronts of your foot, not up toward your toes, but you want to sink back onto the balls of your feet, and it almost gives you the feeling that you're going to fall over backwards. But that's the most stable position. And one reason it's stable is you're using not only the muscles in the fronts of your legs, you're using the muscles on the backs of your legs. Now if I swing away ahead and shoot off the fronts of my feet, I'm using a lot more muscle on one side of my leg than my torso than I am the other, which gives you an off balance. But if you sit back here on, I won't say totally on your heels, but it feels that way, then it kind of 50-50s that, which makes it a lot more steady. You have more tools to be steady with, if you want to say it that way. Okay, so it being the most unstable position of the three positions, you want to take advantage of everything you can to give you support standing. And that is to say, you build your position on your bone structure and your ligaments, your muscle system, and try to lean on your torso as much as you can without using muscles. Now, with the heavier gun, what you do is twist your body around like so, and we liken it to a piece of rope, that if you take a piece of rope, manila rope, and you twist it, it'll go so far, and then it stops. So the idea is, you twist around like this, excuse my voice, and that gives you a lot of support. Having said that, one of the common mistakes that everybody does is they do this. They twist their torso around. And when you do that, your hips are not in line with your feet. Your feet are this way and your hips are this way. Don't want that. You want your feet this way and your hips this way. So you want to twist it around without changing the location of your chips relative to the rest of your body. Your hips, I'm sorry. So once I get my torso twisted around with the gun, you can lean back and rest on that. Now, right now, I'm relaxing on, kind of feels like the heels of my feet, and I've got my torso twisted around, and my hips are still straight on the target. If you do open hips like this, what that does, it tends to make you, when you're sighting on the target, it makes you go around in circles. When you're straight on with your hips, you've got two planes. You've got up and down, which you're leaning on your spine, and you've got left and right, and you're doing that on your torso, and your hips are helping you, okay? So your upper body sinks back on your twisted back to where you can relax back there. And criminal sin number 2 is a lot of people will twist around and they'll shoot the gun in that position, but they're not relaxed back on their spine. They're using muscles to hold that position. Whereas you should be able to sit right down back like that. When you can do this at home in your living room, you can practice at home. So when you're using these muscles to support this system and your hips are open, you're going to be all over the place. But if you can stay straight on the target and you can bring the gun down, we highly recommend you bring the gun from the top of the sighting diagram down onto the bow when you're shooting. And it's imperative that you relax the left arm, and it's imperative that you got your gun set up so when you relax your head, same as we were talking about in prone, when you relax your head on the stock, The head is fairly straight. Don't want to tip it this way too much. Don't want to be forced back too much. It's in a natural position where you would relax your head down on the stock. Now, the 50-meter rifle stocks are adjustable, but sporting rifle, then again, you might want to build the stock up. And you can't change that between positions, so you got to compromise, but it's nice if you build your stock to fit you in standing, and if it doesn't quite fit you in prone, the consequences aren't near as bad. So having done that and relaxing, and you got to have to practice all these things, the weight on your feet, your hips out, your body twisted, your hips straight, relax the left arm and relax your head on the stock, and build a position so when you do all these things, you're oriented on the target. Because obviously, if your hand's out too far, you're going to be quite low. You can adjust that by straightening up. It's just the way the heavier guns goes right down through here. Sporting rifle, not so much. And so you have to work with these elements, these 4 or 5 different elements. So when you're in position, you're oriented very close to the diagram you're going to shoot at. It takes very little adjustment for you to be on that diagram and above it, so you can breathe it down and down and down. And by the time you breathe it down on the bull, then you should have your eye prepared, and you should have your trigger prepared, and you should be ready to go to shooting the shot. So the position is pretty basic, but it takes some work to get it so when you incorporate these elements, you're oriented on the bull, and it's imperative that you're oriented on the bull. And in standing, that's another talk. But to be oriented on the bull in standing is a big advantage because you do not have the steady hold that you have prone. And sometimes, if you're oriented on the bull and the shot gets away, when your sights aren't perfectly on the bull, then the shot will go closer to the center of the target. That's called shooting on the way in. That's another talk. And so to be oriented on the bull standing is very, very important. Get away with quite a lot prone, but oriented on the bull standing, there's points in there for you. Let me see. I'm going to do some dress rehearsal on standing to show us standing. Repeat myself over and above what we already said. Feet quite wide apart. 90 degrees to target. Balance back toward the heels of your shoes, your shooting shoes hopefully. The gun on the rest is nice in between shots, gives you a chance to relax your shoulders. Make sure you get the gun in your shoulder correctly. We'll pretend the bolt's closed. Okay. Lean back on your back. Get oriented on the target. Relax down on the target. You go from the top of the target down onto the diagram in standing. Now I'm thinking about my eye, thinking about my breath, taking a few shots. Orientation looks really good. Relax your cheek down on the stock, just above the sighting diagram. Bang! 6 to 8 seconds to get the shot away. Don't get the shot away, relax. Anything else I might say would be repetitious. You want to be sure that when you're shooting and standing, that you don't do this. You want your hips to be around here. You want to be sure when you're shooting standing that you're not doing this. You want your shoulders to be down here. Relax your head on the stock, the weight on the stock. You should have your stock adjusted or build up to the point where when you relax your head on it, then your head is looking right straight through the center of the rear eyepiece, which is a pretty big mouthful. And elevation can be, the gun can be shot off your fingers like that if you need the extra height. It can be shot off your fist. A lot of the games kids just shoot the gun off their fist like that. Nothing wrong with that. I prefer it to be off the palm, which lowers the gun. And In standing, it's quite beneficial to have the gun as low as you can set it up to be. And one of the bigger reasons for that is then the recoil is straight back. The higher you set your gun up, the recoil would tend to jump the muzzle more. But if the recoil is straight back or straighter back, the less the gun jumps up when you shoot it. The gun can be made to be lower by adjusting the butt plate and putting risers in the front sight and risers in the rear sight, which raises the sights. But let's think about it a little bit different. Think about your head in the right spot, looking through the sights in the right spot, and the sights are on the target. When you put the risers in, what you really are doing is lowering the gun, which gives you that recoil straighter back rather than like this. And that's an advantage shooting. So a lot of shooters are using a very upright head position, relaxed on the stock, with risers in their sights, and the gun is really down here, which is an advantage. Kneeling, pretty much the same story. Prone, not quite so much. I don't know if very many shooters are using any amount of risers in the rear sights. I'm sure some of them are, of course, but for the most part, probably not so much at all, because you can adjust your butt plate, so the gun is pretty much recoiling straight back and prone. But in standing, it tends to jump more.